To close out our program today, I want to introduce the best partner and the best friend that the Paul Engle Center could possibly have had when we opened our doors. Paul Engle Center would not be here without the help of Legion Arts. They were our partner, and they were our friend, and they were our great support in our vision and what we wanted to do. And as the flood has occurred, and as so many artists have had great hardship, either through the loss of their performance venues, the losses of their own homes, the losses of their interests, Legion Arts has been there to help them out. Legion Arts has been a network and a resource for them to try and find the help that they need. We wanted to celebrate Legion Arts by inviting Mel Andringa, one of the co-founders of Legion Arts, to come up and do a reading for us.
You know, it's not traditional in every situation to save the best to the last. The fact is, in vaudeville, quite the opposite was true, and they would put the show on last because they wanted to clear the house to get another version. They put the worst thing, like the Cherry Sisters or Mel Andringa, on the program. So I'll do my best to clear the house. Every Christmas should begin with the sound of bells, and when I was a child, mine always did. But they were sleigh bells, not church bells, because in the part, we lived in the part of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where there were no churches. My bells were on my father's team of horses as he drove us to our horse-headed hitching post with the bobsled that would take us to celebrate Christmas on the family farm 10 miles out in the country. My father would bring the team down 5th Avenue at a smart trot, flicking his whip over the horses' rumps and making the bells double their light thin jangling over the snow, whose radiance threw back a brilliance like the sound of bells. There was no such departures anymore. The whole family piling into the bobsled with a foot of golden oat straw to lie in and heavy buffalo robes to lie under, and the horses stamping the soft snow, and at every motion of their hoofs, the bells jingling, jingling. My father sat there with the reins held firmly, wearing his long coat, made from the hide of a favorite family horse. The deep chestnut color still glowing, his mittens also from the same hide. It always troubled me as an boy of 8 that the horses had so indifferent a view of their late friend appearing in a warm overcoat on the back of the man with the iron bit in their mouths. There are no streets like those anymore. The snow ostensibly left on the road for the sake of the sleighs and the easy travel. We would hop off and ride the heavy runners as they made the hissing, tearing sound over the packed snow. And along the streets we met other horses, so that we moved from one set of bells to another, from the tiny tinkle of the individual bells on the shafts to the silvery leaping sound of the long strands hung over the harness. There would be an occasional brass-mounted automobile laboring on its narrow tires, and as often as not pulled up the slippery hills by a horse, and we would pass it with a triumphant shout for an awkward nuisance that was obviously not here to stay. The country road ran through a landscape of little hills and shallow valleys and heavy groves of timber, including one of great towering black walnut trees, which were all cut down a year later to be made into gun stocks for the First World War. The great moment was when we left the road and turned the long lane on the farm. It ran through fields where watermelons were always planted in the summer because of the finely sandy soil, and I could go out and break open one and see its Christmas colors of green skin and red inside. My grandfather had given me some of the farm, as bounty land for service as a cavalryman in the Civil War. Now, near the low house on the hill, with oaks on one side and apple trees on the other, my father would stand up, flourish the whip, and bring the bobsled right up to the door of the house with a burst of speed. There are no such arrivals anymore. The harness bells ringing and clashing, the horses whinnying at the horses in the barn and receiving a great thump, trumpeting whinny in reply. The dogs leaping into the bobsled and burrowing under the buffalo robes, a squawking from the hen house, a yelling of whoa, whoa at the excited horses, boy and girl cousins howling around the bobsled, and the descent into the snow with the Christmas basket carried by my mother. Well, after that, it gets into great stories about good food, and because I missed lunch, I'm not going to torture myself by going into great detail there. You know, we are very fortunate to live in a city that has respected for many years the contributions that artists have made to the city. And our organization, Legion Arts, attempts to carry that out in one way or another. We don't say we're an arts organization, we say we're an artists organization, and we attempt to support artists in one way or another, whether it's local artists, national or international artists, bring them to the community. And one of our ideas that we're most proud of was even our idea. We were asked by this neighborhood if we would join with the Wellington Heights Association and Mid-America Housing Partnership to create a mini CSPS here on a corner of 16th Street and 4th Avenue. And we were happy to do so, especially when we found out the connections that this building had to a famous artist, native son of Cedar Rapids. Since the flood, Legion Arts has we've had our challenges. We were fortunately up on the second floor, so we just had staircases to deal with. We were without power. We were without telephones for about a month. We were without power for about 2 months, and we were without gas until the first day of October. We've had a little firehouse next door that we were starting into another version of the Paul Engle Center, a little neighborhood center where we were going to have residency activities by artists as well, with a residence upstairs and a studio downstairs. And that building was flooded out on the first floor. Unfortunately, the artist who was there at the time, myself, suffered the loss of some things, but that's, you know, a flood is all about objects, and it's about losing things. It's not really about, it's also about finding things as well, finding friends and support, and finding that you can do without a lot of those things. And, you know, you find out when you have to exactly what things are important to you, and that you probably still have them. We raised some money, not out of our own efforts, but out of the generosity of people who, from all over the country and all over actually different parts of the world as well, who gave us money and said, do what you can with this for your situation. And we felt a little like, you know, we didn't know exactly what to do with it. We didn't have that big of losses that we had to compensate for. So we set up an artist relief fund, and are happy to say that we managed to give $1,000 grants to over a dozen artists to date who lost their studios or their work space because of the flooding. And as we move forward, yes, our little firehouse may well become something like the Paul Engle Center, and I can think of no greater ambition for it than to do what this organization has done, and that is celebrate the life and the work of an artist. Thank you.